I transferred to St. Elora High halfway through the academic year. My father, an Air Force officer, had been relocated to a small base on the outskirts of Assam. That meant new town, new school, new everything. I was 17, used to moving, but never really got used to being the new kid. Everyone stared as I walked into Class 1 to be that first morning, but it wasn't the usual curiosity or judgment. It was, different. Unsettled, the class teacher, Ms. Irawati, smiled politely. You'll take the fourth desk in the last row, next to Mitali. She pointed. I turned. The back corner. Shadows pooled near the ceiling. I hesitated when I saw it. The desk. It looked older than the other's chipped corners, faint scratches etched into the wood like claw marks. While all the other desks were neatly arranged, this one was slightly askew, and strangely cold, even under the morning sun. Mitali. The girl next to it gave me a small nod, but didn't speak. Her eyes were puffy, tired. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. I shrugged off the odd feeling and sat down. From the moment I touched that desk, I felt it. A presence, cold and prickly like invisible thorns brushing against my neck. I told myself it was just nerves. New place, new blibe. But the unease only grew worse. The first sign came that night, at 3:13 a.m. I woke up, gasping, drenched in sweat. In my dream, I was sitting at that desk, alone. The classroom was empty. The walls were covered in handprints, tiny black handprints. And a figure, barely visible, kept whispering from the corner, "Don't turn around. Don't turn around." When I did, I saw nothing except the fourth desk, and a pair of pale arms reaching out from underneath it. I told myself it was just a bad dream. But the next day, I noticed something weird. There was a note tucked inside the desk. Old paper, yellowed edges. "Don't sit here. T doesn't like it." No name. Just that. I looked around. Nobody seemed to notice me reading it. I showed Mitali the note after class. Her face went white. She didn't say anything, just packed up and left. That night, the dream returned. But this time it was worse. Same classroom, same whispers. But this time I wasn't alone. Kali was there, crying, scratching her arms raw. She pointed at the desk and screamed, "He's under it. He's under it." I woke up screaming. The next morning, Mitali didn't come to school. I asked around. The others got quiet and finally muttered, "She transferred." Just like the last girl who sat at that desk. That night I did some digging. Found a local blog run by a former student. There, buried under photo albums and farewell videos, was a single post. The fourth desk, a curse in Class 1 to be. It talked about a boy named Arhan. 2 years ago, he was bullied, relentlessly humiliated in class, beaten in the restroom, his schoolwork stolen. The worst of it happened in Class 1 to be. One afternoon, during a break, Arhan locked himself in the classroom and was never seen again. They found his bag under the fourth desk, and blood. But never his body. The desk remained. Every year, the new student is told to sit there, and every year, as student leaves school mid-year, some go mad, others vanish. One even jumped off the school rooftop. My blood turned to ice, because now I understood. I was the new target. I begged to change seats. Ms. Irawati just smiled stiffly. "You're fine where you are." I stopped sleeping. My dreams blurred into waking hallucinations. Once, during chemistry, I looked down and saw a finger gray, wet, sliding out from a crack in the desk. No one else saw it. Another time, I dropped my pen and ducked to pick it up. I froze. There were eyes under the desk, pale, wide, watching. I nearly passed out. The final straw came during morning assembly. We were in the courtyard, all standing straight. I looked up at the classroom window of 1-B. There was someone standing there, watching us dot from my desk. I ran upstairs, heart hammering, bolted into the classroom empty, except for the fourth desk, which was now completely pulled out into the center of the room. I screamed. That night, I took action. After dark, with a flashlight and a bottle of Ganga water my mother kept for rituals, I was going to cleanse it, burn it, do something. But when I entered the classroom, it was waiting for me. The desk dragged to the center again. This time, there was a trail of blood from the door to underneath it. The moment I stepped forward, the room went cold. The lights flickered. A voice whispered from under the desk. "You looked at me? Now you sit forever." It's the last thing I remember is being pulled down, something clutching my ankle, ice-cold hands dragging me beneath wood, into blackness. I woke up in the hospital. They told me I had a seizure and collapsed in class, but my knees were bruised, my arms scratched. We moved back to Pune, but some nights, even now, I wake up sitting like I'm still at that desk. And sometimes, just before I wake, I hear the voice again. One day, Tio sit forever. I was never someone who believed in ghosts. I didn't care for stories of haunted schools or creepy corridors. I was a science student, rational, practical. So when I got admitted to Kendrick College of Science and Arts in Delhi and assigned a room in the girls' hostel, I wasn't prepared for what would follow. I was given room 303, third floor, east wing. I moved in late at night due to my delayed train from Chandigarh. When I reached, the corridor was dimly lit and eerily silent. The hostel warden handed me the key without making eye contact. As I climbed the stairs, I noticed something strange. Each door had a paper nameplate with the occupant's name scribbled in pen dot, except mine. Room 303 had no nameplate. It's just a faint rectangle of discoloration, as if one had been there and was recently torn off. When I unlocked the door, I found that it was a double room with 2 beds, 2 desks, and 2 closets. But only one side was made up. The other bed was bare. The sheets folded. Dusty. The warden had told me I'd be getting a roommate soon, but something felt wrong. There was a smell like wet fabric and old flowers. That night, I had the first dream. I was lying in bed, in room 303, but I couldn't move. There was a girl in the corner, crouched, her long black hair covering her face. She kept whispering something, over and over. I strained to listen. "I'm still here. I never left." I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat. I turned on the light. The second bed was mussed, like someone had been sleeping there. I tried to explain it away. Maybe a staff member entered while cleaning. Maybe it was just a side effect of moving stress and my mind playing tricks. But the dreams didn't stop. They got worse. Sometimes, I'd hear breathing on the other side of the room when I studied at night. One evening, the bathroom door creaked, opened slowly, though there was no wind then. The scratching started, every night, from under the bed. Scritch, scritch, like fingernails on wood. I finally confided in Priya, a second-year student who lived down the hall. When I mentioned my room number, her face went stiff. "You're in 303, she said slowly. They gave that room again. Do you mean again? Nest. She hesitated before whispering last year. A girl named Tara stayed there. No one knows what really happened, but one night, her roommate came back and found her, hanging in the closet. Lee say she'd been dead for hours. Her eyes were open, like she'd seen something. I froze. Why didn't anyone tell me? Because the college doesn't want to deal with the bad press. So they painted the walls, cleaned the room, and started assigning it again. You're the third girl in that room since then. The other two transferred after just a week. I felt sick. That night, I didn't sleep. I stayed up with the lights on, too afraid to close my eyes. Around 3:17 a.m., the lights went off. It's total blackout. And in the silence, I heard the closet door creak open. My heart stopped. A whisper floated through the darkness. She left me alone. You won't. I screamed and ran out barefoot into the hallway. The warden was furious. Said I was imagining things, that the fuse box had tripped. But she didn't step into my room. Not even once. I begged for a new room. It's fused. Every room is full, she said flatly. You're not a child. Stop believing in ghost stories. So I decided to take matters into my own hands. I brought in a small trishul my grandmother had given me years ago, along with a Rudraksha mala. I placed it near my bed. It didn't help. The next night, I woke to find the trishul burned black. The beads scattered on the floor and on the mirror. Written in something red and sticky were the words, "This is my room." I packed my bag that morning and went to a cheap lodge nearby. I didn't care about attendance, assignments, or hostile rules. A tease. I just wanted out. The college called my parents. My father came down and demanded to see the room. Reluctantly, the warden opened it, but when we entered, everything was back to normal. No message on the mirror. No smell. The beds were neatly made. Even the trishul was shiny again. My father looked at me with a strange expression. Are you okay, Beta? Maybe it's stress. I couldn't blame him. The room looked normal to normal. Before we left, I took one last photo of the room with my phone. Wanted to prove to myself I wasn't crazy. That night, back at the lodge, I opened the photo and dropped the phone, because standing behind my bed, where no one had been, was a girl with long black hair, in a white kurti, her eyes wide and bloodshot, and she was smiling. The timestamp on the photo read 3:17 a.m. exactly. When the lights went out the night before, I never went back. I dropped out 2 weeks later and enrolled in an online course, but stilling you to messages from an unknown number at 3:17 a.m. every night. Come back. You're not alone anymore. I was in my first year at St. Raymond's Residential School, Ridashira, boarding school nestled deep in the hills of Mussoorie. It's kind of place with high stone walls, creaky staircases, and too much fog. The boys in my dorm called it the Keep. Room 7, 2 beds, 1 cracked window, and a strange patch on the far wall, right beside my bed, where the plaster seemed damp, even though there were no pipes behind it. My roommate, Arnav, was one of those quiet toppers who mostly kept to himself. He never said much unless you asked. The only weird thing I noticed about him was how he never slept facing the wall. Even if he turned in his sleep, he'd always shift back the moment his back was to it. One evening, after prep, I returned, to find him sitting on his bed, pale as chalk, staring at the wall. I asked if he was okay. He just said, "Don't listen to it." I laughed it off. That night, I stayed up studying for a physics test. I heard it, a soft whisper, so soft, I thought I imagined it, but then it came again. Karen, dot dot dot. I froze. It came from the wall, right beside my bed. I leaned in, thinking maybe someone was outside, playing a prank. Karen, dot dot. Turn around, dot dot dot. No joke, said my name. I leaped out of bed, heart hammering, and shook Arnav awake. He looked at me with wide eyes and just said, "It's starting again, isn't it?" Asterisk the next day, I begged Arnav to explain. He told me the wall wasn't just weird. It was haunted. There was a boy here before me. Same bed. Name was Ishan. Everyone liked him. He was a happy guy. One day, he started acting strange, sleepwalking, talking to the wall, and scratching at it in his sleep. I asked what happened to him. He jumped off the 3rd floor, right outside this window. My blood ran cold. They found claw marks on the inside of the wall. His nails had blood under them. He kept saying, dot dot dot. The wall speaks. That evening, I noticed something else. There were names etched faintly into the base of the wall, at least 6 of them. Some were partly covered with paint. One of them was Isha, and another was Arnav, and the last one, my name. I hadn't scratched it. That night, the whispering returned. Like this time, it didn't stop at my name. Do you want to know the truth, Karen? We all came through the wall. You will too. I covered my ears, but the voice echoed in my skull. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think. Started hearing it during the day too, in class, in the library, even during prayers. On the 3rd night, snapped. I punched the wall. The plaster cracked and something seeped out. It wasn't water. It was black, thick, smelled like rot. Arnav screamed and pulled me back. He showed me his phone. There was a photo of the wall he'd taken earlier. It had no crack, no stain, nothing. We were the only ones who saw it. Asterisk, the next morning, I went straight to the school counselor, told her everything. She gave me a tired look and gently said, "You're the 5th student this year to report something about room 7. I blinked. Then why let people stay there? She sighed. Because we can't keep closing rooms for ghosts. Not officially. That night, I asked to sleep in the infirmary. They allowed it, but warned me I'd be marked absent for night check. At 2:30 a.m. I awoke to scratching. The wall in the infirmary was whispering too. You moved, Karen, but I'm still with you. I screamed so loud I woke the matron. The next morning, my father came. I was pulled out of school immediately, but here's the part that haunts me. A week after I left, Arnav went missing. The school told his parents he ran away, but I know better. They found his bed empty, window open, and on the wall freshly etched beneath all the names, Arnav, 2025. I listened too long. Time. I wake up at night and swear I hear a whisper behind my headboard. I moved cities, burned the old uniform, but nothing helps, because once the wall knows your name, it doesn't forget. Turn around, Karen, We're still waiting. I don't believe in ghosts, or why I didn't. Not until the 3rd day of our CBSE board exams last March. It was English paper. I reached my exam center, St. Myra's Senior Secondary School. A place I'd never been to before, just a sign randomly, like most centers. The building was old, with faded blue paint peeling off the walls and buzzing yellow tube lights that looked like they'd flicker out any second. Room 14B. That's where they placed me. second row from the front, fourth bench. I remember clearly, because that number would haunt me later. When I sat down, I noticed something weird immediately. All the desks were arranged in neat pairs, but the bench in front of me, only one student was assigned there. The left chair was empty. But the invigilator had placed an answer sheet on it anyway. I asked, "Sir, no one's sitting here, right?" He glanced and frowned. "Why wouldn't someone be there? Roll 4118 is present." But no one ever came for the next 3 hours. I watched that empty seat and the blank answer sheet fluttering under the fan. At one point, I could have sworn I heard the chair creak, like someone shifted. I even saw the pen roll slightly across the desk. I told myself it was just nerves. But when the bell rang and we handed in our papers, something happened that chilled me. The invigilator walked up to the front, flipping through the answer sheets. He paused, counted again, then muttered, "One extra." He looked at the left desk. Again, no one was there. He walked out quickly, clutching the bundle, not saying another word. Asterisk on the fourth exam, biology, was back in the same room, same seat, 1 for B, and again. The left chair in front of me had an answer sheet placed down before the exam started. This time, I saw something else. A long, thin black braid resting on the back of the empty chair. At first, I thought maybe a girl had quickly stepped out. But no one ever returned to that seat and the braid. It vanished midway through the exam. I asked the guy next to me, "Did you see someone sit in that spot?" He looked at me like I was mad. "What spot?" "That seat's been empty since day one." I didn't say anything else, but when I went to submit my paper, grisly, I lingered near the invigilator. He looked up and whispered, "You saw her too, didn't you?" I froze. He leaned in, low and serious. "Taze, roll number 4118. She was here last year. Her name was Niyati Singh." I said nothing. I didn't know what to say. She never left the exam hall. I swallowed hard. "What do you mean?" "She died in that chair. Heart failure, mid-paper, just collapsed. No warning. By the time help came, she was cold." Lee stared at him. "But sometimes," he said, "her answer sheet still ends up in my pile." He didn't wait for my reply. He just left. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the black braid slowly twisting on the desk. And a soft whisper, "I didn't finish. I didn't finish. .. Asterisk, the last examiths was when everything unraveled. By then, I was too paranoid to ignore it anymore. I even considered faking illness to skip the paper, but my parents wouldn't hear it. "It's just stress," they said. "Finish strong." Back at 14B, I sat down third time in that cursed seat. When I looked up, the girl was there. I swear it. She sat in the left desk in front of me, her braid perfectly neat, uniform spotless, hands folded. Her skin looked pale, almost gray-blue, like underwater flesh. But no one else noticed her. Even when the invigilator did roll call, he called her name, 4118, Niyati Singh. She raised her hand. I wanted to scream, but I froze. The exam began, and as I struggled with a geometry question, I heard something pencil scratching. Furious, angry scratching. I glanced up. Niyati was writing so fast, her wrist a blur. The paper, under her hand, was filling up with black scribbles. Not numbers, just spirals, circles, symbols. Suddenly, the fan stopped. The lights dimmed. For maybe 5 seconds, the entire hall seemed to pulse with dead silence. Then the girl slowly turned. Her head, looking straight at me. Her eyes were hollow, bleeding black, and she whispered, "I never finished. But you will." I don't remember much after that, they say. I collapsed mid-paper. Seizure, panic attack. But when I came to in the nurse's office, the staff looked shaken. One of them whispered to the other, "Did you see the spare sheet?" It had writing on it. They were talking about Niati's sheet, but that couldn't be. The seat had been registered as empty. I tried to tell my parents, but they wouldn't believe it. The T said I had exam anxiety. I did. But weeks later, when results came, I noticed something impossible. Under my name and roll number, a small note, greater than duplicate submission found for 4118, flagged for verification. I wasn't 4118. I was for 120. She submitted something, and when I looked up that roll number in an archived list, NIYATI Singh, 2006 to 2023, deceased during examination, and her seat. Room 14B, left chair, 4th row. I dropped out a month later, but every year when exam season comes around, Tays hit an email from the board. Your test center is assigned St. Myra's, room 14B. No matter what I choose, and some nights I hear a voice in my head, I didn't finish. So you'll keep writing. For me. I joined Saraswati National College in Pune in July 2023. Like most students from out of town, I got a room in the campus hostel block C, 3rd floor. When the warden handed me the keys, he paused at first, muttered something under his breath, then gave them with a tight smile. Room 302. Don't worry, it's been cleaned. That struck me as weird, but I didn't question it. I was tired, anxious, and just happy to have a private room. The first 2 days went by normally. The room smelled faintly of mothballs and something metallic, but I chalked it up to age. It was spacious, had a cupboard, an old study table, and a single bed bolted to the floor. But on the 3rd night, I noticed something strange. At exactly 3:02 a.m., the bathroom light flickered on by itself. I thought maybe the switch was faulty. I went in, turned it off, and returned to bed. Not 10 seconds later, it flicked on again. I stood outside the bathroom, switch in hand, watching. Click, off, click, back on. No one was touching it. Switch didn't even move. I slept with the bathroom door shut after that. But the next morning, I noticed something that stopped me cold. On the mirror, written in the fog, even though I hadn't used hot water, was a message, greater than get out. I checked the mirror again. It was dry. There was no steam, no fog, but the letters were there, faint, like they had been etched from the inside. Asterisk. I tried to ignore it, told myself it was just in my head. Exam stress, hostile paranoia. But that night, I couldn't sleep. There was a sound, a low humming coming from the cupboard. When I opened it, I found nothing but an old nameplate fallen in the corner behind the plywood back panel. It read, R. Sharma, T22. I asked around. No one wanted to talk about room 302. One of the seniors finally pulled me aside and said, "You're in Sharma's room?" Shit. He's the one who... He stopped, glancing over his shoulder. He hung himself in your bathroom. April last year. Found dangling with his belt wrapped around the shower rod. My stomach turned. I asked why they'd give that room to a new student. He just shook his head. They clean it up, repaint it, and hope no one notices. That night, I didn't sleep, because at 3:02 a.m., the bathroom light flicked on again, and this time, the bathroom door slowly creaked open. Huh. Stared into the darkness and saw the faint silhouette of a boy hanging from the ceiling, feet swaying slightly. No rope, no face, just a shadow, suspended. I shut my eyes and prayed until morning. The next day, I went to the warden and begged him to shift my room. He looked at me, sighed, and said, "We don't have space." I threatened to call my parents. His face hardened. "Then you'll need to fill out the withdrawal form." Teenantly. It hit me then. They wanted me to stay, or they wanted something else. I packed a bag and decided to leave that night without telling anyone. But at 2:50 a.m., I woke up suddenly gasping, drenched in sweat. The room was ice cold, and at exactly 3:02 a.m., I heard something. Not the bathroom light this time. It was a whisper. "You saw me. You don't leave." Then the cupboard door banged open, hard enough to crack the hinges. I ran. I didn't take my bag, my charger, nothing. I just ran barefoot out of that room, down the stairs, and out of the hostel. I waited outside until sunrise. No one came to check on me. When I returned with the assistant dean the next morning, room 302 looked completely empty. No bed, no cupboard, just cobwebs. He looked confused. "There's no one assigned here," he said. "Room 302 has been sealed since last year." I showed him the key. He took it from my hand and said it wasn't from their hostel. He even showed me the current list. My room number was 203, not 302. There was no room 302 in Block C, but I stayed there for 3 nights. I lived in that room. Somewhere in that building. Someone else still does.